I'm going to show you a couple of ways to make sticks that are at weird angles. Most of what I'm going to show you today, I will build some sort of scaffolding or armature in order to generate endpoints or to generate curves that I can use to locate things in space. I'm going to start with just a simple line here in my front view, a diagonal line. Now I'll go to my perspective view. There's that diagonal line. So let me just make a rectangle. I'll just go ahead and sweep now. And we'll sweep with one rail. Select rail. Select cross-section curve. Press enter when done. I'm going to go ahead and click my point. Press enter. And go ahead and accept the sweep. So you can see that the sweep was placed where my profile curve is. If I would have moved my profile curve to be right on the rail edge, the sweep would have been created on this line. I just wanted to show you that wherever the profile curve is, that's where the sweep will be placed. And then if I wanted to put a top and a bottom on that, the command is cap. So another way that you can do this, sometimes you guys have sticks that are angled in more than just one dimension. On occasion you might actually use a plane for your scaffolding as opposed to just using a curve. I'm going to use a rectangular plane. I would give it the base and the height of the triangle that creates the diagonal by which this new stick will be placed, and then I will rotate this plane up to this angle. Turn my ortho off for just a second. I rotated it up by 30 degrees, and now I can use this diagonal to help me generate where that stick is. I can now offset this diagonal, create a surface, and then extrude that surface into a three-dimensional form. So offset, insert the distance, which would be one of the dimensions of the stick. I'll use the loft command. The loft command is a great way to make a surface when you have two edge curves. Let's go ahead and extrude this surface to create a volume. We want extrude surface. Select the surface, press enter. Set the direction. Notice that it always wants to extrude perpendicular to the input geometry. Set your height. I'm going to go ahead and delete the surface, my scaffolding surface. Delete the surface that I extruded, and now you can see that I have a stick that's angled in two directions. If I wanted to make this come flush down to the ground, one thing I could try is to move edge. I want to move this top edge. My point to move from, let me pick somewhere near this edge, and I want to move along that edge until I get pretty close to reaching down to the flat surface of the ground. To make wires in space, there are many ways that you can do this, but basically we need to create curves, three-dimensional curves in space. I know that some of you have wire curves that have a lot of straight segments, and so one thing we can do is get straight segments off of something like a cube. And to do this, I'm going to use dupe edge for duplicate edge, and select edges. Let me go ahead and join those before I deselect, and now I'm going to delete the rectangle. So what I've just done is create this three-dimensional curve that could be indicative of where my wire is in space. And then I want to use the pipe command, select my curve. I want to set my first radius, let's try 1/16 of an inch. My end radius, 1/16 of an inch, and enter. That was a pretty small radius, but you can see that I've just created a pipe along that curve. Let me do it again and show you some other ways to modify that. I'm going to get rid of the pipe. Most of your pipes don't have these perfectly crisp 90-degree corners, so you can use the fillet command. Go ahead and try this radius of 1/2 and select two curves to fillet. And you see there I just got this little tiny radius. Fillet again. This time I'm going to try a radius of 2. So what I'm doing is I'm selecting fillet and then I'm selecting one curve on the end that I'd like to join to the end of another curve, and I get those soft radii, this time with a radius of 1, and one more time with a radius of 1. Now let me go ahead and pipe again. Select my curve. I'll make my radius a little bit bigger this time. How about 3/16? And 3/16. Enter, and you can see that the pipe takes that curvature. Looking at one more way to create curves in order to represent wires is that you can build a scaffolding out of lines. And let me just show you. For this example, I'm going to use lines, not polylines, because lines allow you to make a vertical component. So here you can check vertical or type V for vertical and go ahead and set your vertical distance. So I would use lines if I know what my direction and distance is. I'm going to just create a quick scaffolding. And then come back in and put the verticals. I forgot to hit V for vertical. Okay, so you should play with the different types of curves here underneath your curve menu, but I think in this case you probably want to try curve interpolate points. And then I will select the endpoints here, which is the whole reason for making this scaffolding, so that I have points in space at the right X, Y, and Z coordinates. And now I've just created that curve. So you can do the same thing. You can use the pipe command. I'm going to make this even bigger, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, enter. And so there you can see I have a curved wire in space. Let me show you one more thing using the sweep. I'm just going to move that pipe curve out of the way for a second so I can use this as a rail and draw a rectangle. Let me try to move that rectangle into position. And rotate 3D. I don't really love where that is. Let me try. Okay, and then again if I do a one rail sweep, select rail, select cross-section curve, enter, pick a point, enter, sweep. Now I've just created that same curve but with a square profile instead of a round profile. And that ought to do it.